All right, I think okay, you can now send your request. I'm now using my mobile phone. It seems my laptop doesn't have the laptop. Okay, I go this way. Good. So the laptop doesn't have. So you can now join. You can now join. Use. All right. So the guest speakers, please. You can now come online. I'm now using my mobile phone. Good. 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 So I'm now using my mobile phone. So feel free, come online now. I don't know what's wrong with my system. So you can send your request and then come online. Let's discuss. Good, joining. Right. Hello, I welcome you to this live session, Father.
Thank you.
Good. Father Henry Ogodo is a philanthropist. He's the priest of God of Holy Roman Catholic Church in Abakaliki Diocese. He's an erudite scholar. That's why I try to bring him in to this live section. He's a wonderful man and mentor too. So I respect him a lot. So Father, you are highly welcome to this live discussion today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
Can you
inviting
please
me.
increase the frequency of your volume? It's too low.
All right. All right.
Right. So I welcome you to Comrade Jonathan Abom, a wonderful friend and brother. You are highly welcome to this live section. You're a nice
Thank
person.
you.
You've been a wonderful scholar and a wonderful fellow too. You are welcome to this live section. And
Thank you.
remember,
Thank
our
you.
topic of discussion today, my friends outside there, is death. It's a natural phenomenon that we all need to ponder on. It's something we can't do away with. That's why I decided to discuss this topic today. In our previous discussion, we tried to establish something with regard to life. What is life and its meaning and what life entails. And then we tried also to establish a bound on between needs and wants. And then yesterday we tried to astray what love is all about, love and how love has been misused in the past. And then today we want to discuss one of the natural phenomena that we oftentimes try to shroud away from, to run away from, but we can't ordinarily run away from it. And most of the discussions some scholars have engaged on from the philosophical point of view, psychological point of view, sociocultural point of view, and from the Christian point of view of what death is all about. And most times some persons would be, why must it be me? Why must it be me? That's the question they would always ask. Why must it be you? Why must it be me? If not you, who else? And why would some person say, no, be consoled, because we have a place we are heading to? And then at even, for no reason, why should there be anything death? Why should there be anything death at all? So that's why I decided to to discuss this topic. I know it's not going to be an easy one, but I believe the scholars here have so many things to share, and I believe they will give out their best. And please, I beg you, my friends and followers out there, please share this live broadcast, share it to your page, encourage your followers to make their own contribution, and join the live broadcast. Make your comments. We are not all knowing. I used to say it, that each and everyone is entitled to his or her own opinion, but that doesn't mean there is no opinion that is highly accepted or universally accepted. However, there are also some opinion that you would listen to and then you say, no, I don't need this. But every opinion is an opinion and no one is superior to each other. So your own opinion outside there might count. even more than the persons to speak on this. So please feel free to make your comments. Feel free to make your comments. Invite your friends to join. Follow our page and make your own contribution. Like before now, people continue to say in our own philosophical sojourn, and then from our biological perspective, when we studied biology, then they tell us that death is the irreversible cessation of biological organisms. Irreversible, something that cannot come back again. So for organisms with a brain and something that has life, that will definitely go down. And then why does it seem that this organism that goes down, exited from life, will not come back to life again? Why? Why does it seem so? Why is it irreversible? Why is it irreversible? That irreversibility of this life is what makes it somehow, some persons would ask questions. Why is it irreversible? And then some person would say, because death is generally applied to every living thing. So far as an object is living, so far as this thing has life, it will definitely cease from living. Why will it definitely cease from living? Why? It's a question I said, okay, it has been bothering me, and then it has been bothering some persons, and I decided no. If at all there is, if at all this word called death, as they say, is irreversible, and from our Christian background, they told us that after our life here, there is a place we are heading to. That place we are heading to, is there life there? To where we are heading to, is there life there? So that's what makes this discussion most paramount. And at this stage, I would want to give our guest speaker, Very Reverend Father Henry Ogodo, the audience. Please listen to him. He's an erudite scholar. He has so many things to share to us. Please feel free, and then make your comments, ask your questions where necessary. Please, Father, you have the stage.
Well, first and foremost, I wish to thank you, Austin, for inviting me. I hope you can hear me very clearly now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Very well. Okay. Well, to my fellow discussants, thank you and welcome to this great blue platform. You're welcome.
Thank you, Father.
And to all our viewers, thank you for keeping time with us. One, I may speak basically as a Christian because I'm a priest. But however, I am first and foremost a human being, and therefore the reality of death is something that no matter where you are, no matter how big and no matter how small, it's one that cuts across, that the experience basically is always unique. However, let me make bold to say this. Discussing death is a very dangerous thing, both in the realm of academics or religion, wherever you can take it to. I say it is dangerous because everything we know, everything we claim, everything we can say about that, all of them are guesswork. The reason being that nobody has a first-class experience of what death is all about. Of course, in philosophy, we talk about we say something like only the cat knows what it is like to be a cat. The most dangerous thing about death is that those who experience death do not have opportunity to give the narratives.
Good.
And as such, it is a realm that is exclusively removed from a first-hand fact conception. Since you don't have it, whatever we're going to say, even everything I'm saying now is also a guesswork, and whatever I'm going to say. Because the only thing, the best fact you can say is to ask someone, are you talking from experience? I'm not going to talk from experience. I have never died.
And you'll not die now.
As far as I know.
And none of us has ever.
Good.
So every attempt to explain that could be categorically divided into two. One is scientific and rational. I decided to merge the two. Ordinarily, you can separate them into three. But for me, both science and philosophy deal with the rationale. They base their distinct based partially, one purely on empirical, the other one abstract reasoning. And if you combine the two, the reason also makes use of abstraction from the empirical facts. And therefore, I decided to classify it into two: rational and empirical as one, and then religious. When you talk about rational or scientific, they try to explain away the reality of death to convince the human reason in order to make less the mental pain that the human person undergoes before the real death happens.
Good.
Two, to conquer the power of fear that actually causes the psychological death before the physiological one occurs. That is what science tries to do. And when you go to science and when you go to philosophy, you are free to accept whether there is nothing like dying, or whether death is an extinction, or whether death is an end, whatever way you experience it, or what science tells us that after decomposition or the cessation of the brain or the nerves or any of the biological organs, when they cease to function, death actually occurs. All these are the submissions of science. But in religion, what religion has actually tried to do is to submit two things. Number one, to say that death is not an end.
Okay.
Number two, to appeal to reason and the sentiment, that is emotion, to conquer the fear that makes death a very horrifying reality, and then try to propose something with regard to the present life in terms of ethics and morality, and also a hope that sustains good behavior, to propose a life after life.
Okay.
And basically, they have their own facts. In the Bible, according to John chapter 11, from verse 25 to 26, I decided to quote this place without making reference to other places. Because when you come to religion or Christianity, you don't have a single or a universally agreed concept of death. We can discuss death based on the conception of the Orthodox line, the Protestant, and the New Life movements.
Okay.
By this I mean, by the Orthodox, I mean Catholic, Anglican, Lutherans, Methodist, Presbyterian, basically are the mainline Orthodox. For them, they have a different conception of death. But when you talk of the Protestant, it is also very close to what the Orthodox speak about, or the way they view death. But when you come to the New Life movement, like the Great Message and the rest of them, it is or the Jehovah's Witness of 1989, but according to Pastor Russell, for them, they categorize their own conception of death in a very peculiar and different way. But being a Catholic priest, I will speak basically as an Orthodox. Christ basically is believed to be the founder of Christianity. And the encounter of John chapter 11 that brought the resurrection, or bringing back to life his friend Lazarus, brought one of the discussions of Christ. Of course, let me put this. The whole discussions or the teaching of Jesus Christ in the Bible could be categorically divided into two.
Okay.
Controversy and a dialogue. A controversy is a case where the Jews or those who oppose Christ, starting from the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, and so on, come in confrontation to argue with Jesus. Sometimes it will not end in having a concluded teaching. The Jews may walk away and Christ may teach those who believe in them what he wants to submit. But in dialogue is a question where a question causes a teaching from Christ. Like when Martha and Mary asked Jesus, if you were here, our brother wouldn't have died. It was not meant for an argument. Jesus said, even now, if you believe. And he said, do you believe? I am the resurrection and I am life. And therefore, those who have died, even if they die, they will live again. And those who are still alive cannot die. Do you believe this? It was on this concept to build their faith that he worked the miracle that brought Lazarus back to life. So for me, in the Christian view of death, death is not an end. It is a gateway to another life. The question you should ask, what type of life? That's where we come to another day's work.
Okay.
In Christianity, we can believe that we have received revelations and messages from the other side of the world of those who have died and have given us. But science cannot accept this because they cannot verify it. And this is where we have to come in terms to reconcile the submission of science and the role of faith. Of course, one theologian has actually described the relationship between the two. He says, where science can no longer cope, they submit to faith, and faith carries on. Of course, life is more than what the science can submit at all. And in that case, we question death most of times, but we have never questioned life. And the only best way we can question the two is to ask the intention of who gave life and who takes life. What we describe as death and what we describe as living. So when we say for Christians, basically, life doesn't end at death. It is an exit into another phase of living. And therefore, for Christians, when one dies, he has actually existed the physical realm to exist in another life where death can no longer have sway. Then what happens at death? If it is so, why is it that the life is so sweet and death so painful that some cry even at the point of exit?
Yes, that's actually the question.
Good. Now, the thing is this. We normally say this proverb every day, that a bird at hand, what two in the bush? Good. We think that basically because we have the grips of life on our palm and the much we have enjoyed within the life is the best that we can get even here or hereafter. So you don't know where you're going, whether you're going to have something like that. All this contribute to the pains. That's number one. Number two, life, nobody exists in an isolation. We exist in the network of social life that you see yourself being born in the midst of a group, live in the midst of a group, helped within the group, and you are dying to leave that group. So existing that group is in itself one of the most dangerous pains that we feel at death. Number three, an attachment that we have created with time. This attachment can come from position, from titles, from achievement, from wealth, or from money, even your money in the bank. That's at some point, if someone is dying, the last thing he will remember is the amount of money he has. Even after going into coma, I have witnessed someone who was about to die, but the last question he continued to ask was his amount of money. Has this person paid me? Has so-so person come? Has he brought the money? Has my bank sent a lot or something like that? All this contribute to the pains that we feel. Number four, or most importantly, our loved ones. No matter how you think, how strong you may think you are, whether married or not, whether you're a priest or not, the fact remains that You don't need to have a wife in order to have someone that is dear to you. Just like some of us, my father is very dear to me, and my mother is very loving to me. So, like, if anything happens to me, don't be surprised that I may be mentioning the names of these people while dying. So something like that. Those who have lived in a family relationship, they may find it difficult either to exit leaving their wife or their wives behind, their children, their loving brothers and sisters, and so on. So it is the summation of this that make the point of dying very painful. And also, dying has no unique way of taking its vent on human beings. There are those who die in an accident. You can't see them regret dying because it happens once. Those shot, it is just a second thing and they are gone. But this is not the same experience with those who die of cancer and other different diseases, especially those that cannot be redeemed. So when you listen to these people and go closer to them, two things happen within time. At the beginning, there is this feeling of hopelessness. But within time, they build a confidence that normally, in most cases, appear to be greater than their own. Those of us who are priests can testify to this. There are those that you meet in the hospital to console them, to pray for them, and to give them the last sacrament. And they will be the one advising you, telling you more realities, more in a greater confidence than yourself. I have encountered this most of the time. So that in the face of death, they are telling you, like one that I witnessed last year. The man actually told me, Father, I have been waiting for you to come for 3 days, and they're the one holding me here. And thank God you are here.
Hey.
Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
This is serious.
Awesome. And he said, thank God you are here. And maybe after now, I think I need to go. I said, no, it's not yet time. But this, he said, Father, whatever you are doing, do it fast. And after praying for him, I anointed him. I gave him the last sacrament. He prayed and then raised his hand and waved at me. It was the last. And we thought that we were giving him time to pray after receiving the communion. We were talking with those, and when we touched him, it was cold, dead cold. And that was the end. And the daughter turned to me and said, Father, thank you for coming. Our father had been crying, calling that you come. So in such case, such person has actually been in bed for a very long time, and with time developed a confidence within the sick bed, accepted death, and conquered the fear. Whatever happens to him is not necessary, but this is an experience, the last experience. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Father, for that wonderful illustration. I so much like your explanation and the examples you gave. And everybody watching, at least you know he's a priest, and he cannot speak from a philosophical point of view. He's just speaking direct from the Christian perspective, from the Christian background. And of course, you should trust him, you know what he can offer. Then, Father, before I go into some of the questions I would like to ask you, somebody wrote something, Remigius Izinchukwu wrote something. He said, Padre, are you speaking as one that's indoctrinated, or were you not supposed to spread a message based on what you know and believe in? That is one. Aside your position as a clergy, what is your view and meaning of death? It's a question posed by somebody before.
I think Remigius, if Remigius had listened to me from the intro, I made my point of view very clear. Number one, let me clear that point of the first one. Am I speaking as one indoctrinated? I am a scholar.
Good.
By profession, I'm a philosopher and also a theologian.
Good.
So when it comes to the question of indoctrination, go to it in verse. I am not indoctrinated. I'm a social critic. So I said it from the onset that whatever we say about death is a guesswork.
Good.
I don't think Izuchukwu got that point. Second, why is it guesswork? Because there is no first-hand information about that.
Good.
When we talk about doctrine, well, let us not restrict doctrine to religion only. Every philosophical perspective is a doctrine. Every philosophy, every theory is like a doctrine. It's a matter of name. It's just a name. And then prejudice. What I have just exposed is what is common to Christians and what is common to life.
Okay.
However, must I speak as a Christian and not what I believe in? No man speaks from nowhere.
Good.
But as of today, I'm a priest and I must speak from the point of view of Christians and also as a human and as a scholar. And when I combine these two, I am just combine these thread. And that's the product of what you have just gotten. So what I believe about that is also, if you want me to speak what I believe about that, is also a doctrine too. An indoctrination is a personal point of view. I have not died. I said this earlier on. And therefore, whatever I say about that is what I have gathered with time from the experience of those who were dying, from what is written, from what the church teaches.
Good.
Outside your position as a clergy, what is your view and the meaning of that? For me, death is living the life, not as the way that you see it now, to the definition of those who will witness how you left.
All right.
And therefore, just like asking me, not as a Christian, if you ask me, where will you be after dying?
Yes. Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you that question. There is one of the questions I actually wanted to ask you after this. But thank God you just asked yourself. You can.
Well, there was a funny thing that happened in a burial. One pastor was preaching and asked, 5 minutes after your death, where will you be? And an old man quickly responded, in the mortuary. And later on, he said, it is left for the decision of those who are alive. Wherever they keep me, that's where I am. And somebody says, yeah, if they decide to bury you or whatever. But the question remains.
Okay.
It depends. As Christians, we believe that dying is when the soul leaves the body. The question remains, leaves to where? For Christians, we say, leaves to God who created. Because you can't describe death without describing life. Life for the Christians is a gift from God. And therefore, only God who owns takes. For us as human beings, we are simply temporary managers of the life. And why it is necessary to know this is that you must respect the intention of the giver. And that's why for Christians, suicide is a very big sin.
Okay.
That you are not even free to kill. You can't take what you didn't create. You can't destroy what you create. So that's my submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father, for attending to that question from Remigius Izichukwu. And you have also answered one of the questions I had wanted to ask you while you were presenting your points. So please, friends out there, before I pose another question to Father, if you have something maybe that has bothered you with regard to death and the issue you have been trying to treat and you've been thinking of, please kindly write it down on the comment section. We have scholars. And the guest speaker, the person that just spoke now, of course, you know him too well. You know what he can do. He's a scholar, he's a priest, and he's a philanthropist. So just send in your question on that. What you think, or maybe your suggestion, what you think death is all about. Or maybe you feel that you want to be heard out, you want to come online, you can just send a request. I'll bring you live and you make your contribution. But if you feel you don't want to show your face, you don't want to come live, just write your comments. If it's a question you want to pose to Friday, another speaker is about coming on board. So please write down your question. When he finishes, then we can now ask the questions together. So please, Father, thank you very much for that wonderful submission. It's quite clear, and just as you said, according to you just quoted Justin Gadama, no one speaks from nowhere. We also believe you. You spoke from the point of view of a priest and as a Christian. So thank you very much, Father, for that wonderful submission. So now we welcome our speaker, Comrade Jonathan Abom. So please, Jonathan, you have the stage.
First of all, greetings to you again, Father.
Thank you, Jonathan.
You are a mentor. We have learned a lot from you, both here and elsewhere. Those of us that follow your page, each day by day, you give us hints on how to survive life. To some extent, I find myself unworthy to even discuss a topic of this nature. I almost shy away, but I don't want to hurt my friend, Augustine. I wanted to shy away from the topic. One is that to me it's mysterious. Secondly, one needs to have a lot of theological and philosophical backup to be able to substantiate a kind of defend such a topic as huge as this. But nonetheless, my own discussion will be based on the scientific aspect of death. The way we perceive it socially, that is in our own life, day-to-day encounters, how we see life. Biologically, death, just as Augustine has said earlier, is the cessation of all biological functions that sustains an organism. Organisms comprises of both plants and animals in the concept of biology. Now, it might also interest you that dying is one of the things that even characterize a human being. Scientifically, all living organisms must die one day. That is our own knowledge of biology. And those days in our junior classes, it was represented with Mr. Niger D. Now the last D is death. And even our teachers, those days, they will never dwell on it. The only thing, if you go through your notes, if you go through where you jotted something those days, they will always just write, all living things must die. And that will be the end of it. No one will dwell more on it, better to explain what happens or what must happen or how it happens or when it will happen. Of course, no one knows. None of us here has ever died, and we cannot be given a first-class information, a kind of first-hand information, sorry to say. So it's something that must occur to every living organism. So now, when it's the time, that means you have accomplished those characteristics that characterize, those things that characterize a human, a life. You have accomplished that. That phase is closed. Now, who tells the story? The living. That brings me to the social aspect of it. The social aspect of it varies from place to place, vary from culture to culture, vary from person to person, and vary from perception to perception. Some persons have seen a lot in the sense that death to them is nothing again. I don't know if you are flowing with me.
Yes, we are flowing.
Some persons have seen a lot of situations that they don't take death as anything. They just take it, oh, that one don't go. Hey, yeah, sorry. When are we going to chop right? More of ceremonial. Like I said, I'm dwelling scientific, like the biology aspect of it and the social aspect of it.
Yes.
So if
Yes.
you meet a person that have seen it all in life, the way the person is going to address death will shock you. Some persons, because it's only in death that they keep meeting with persons, meeting with peers, and meeting with associations, identifying with people, and some people has even used it as a source of income. So that's why I shy away from this topic, because my own perspective will be different from what others may feel. But I'm not going to go deeper because, one, I am not grounded and I've never died. So
Yes, yes,
in
but you
this
have the
social
stage.
aspect of it now,
You have the stage.
yeah.
Just say everything you
So
know.
now, so when one dies, all the body organs cease to work. And the next thing that happens is decay. And the first part of the body that starts to decay is the mouth. And when that happens, the living will no longer be comfortable. What they do is plans on how to either move the person to the mogu or bury immediately. It's not the choice of the dead what happens after. It's the choice of the living. And the decision of the living supersedes whatever will happen at that moment, no matter the caliber of person you are, no matter the kind of person you are. The living at that moment, the most available person determines what happens to you next. Whether you're going to be buried immediately or if you move to the mogu is their own decision to take. Now, it is painful to the living, but not to the dead. I will say so because the dead cannot say anything, cannot share experience, cannot even utter a word. Rather, it's the living that cries. It's the living that begins to make arrangements for burial. It's the living that begins to think of things to do to avert the situation, even though it is irreversible. Now, one thing that happens to the living first is that, first of all, depending on how close you are to the person, you will experience denial. Oh, this person I've done say is not true. Stop that joke. If it's a joke, stop it. The person will live in denial for quite a number of time until it will get to a point the person will now be convinced. And after being convinced that this has happened, the next thing that follows is you sober, you mourn, you weep, you cry out loud for those who can cry. Some cry within themselves, some cry out loud. So after denying it first, immediately that happens, you first of all, the loved ones will deny it. Say it's not true. Even when it happened before you, you say this thing never happened until you will now be convinced. After being convinced, you now begin to weep. Now, after the weeping goes after a while, depending on your relationship with the dead. Because we cannot talk about the death directly because it's the activity. That's why I'm dwelling on the social aspect of it. It's the living now, how it now affects them, how they now react, what they do is what I am trying to bring to the picture.
Yes, yes, yes.
The first,
right on.
after the whole stage now, you now begin to calm yourself, console yourself. A lot of consolations will be coming here and there, here and there. But the best one will be that one you have given to yourself. Then after the consolation, you now ask yourself, what next? And no matter every other protocol, every other process that it will take, it will land in inheriting the 6 feet. Some it may take time when your must have been moved to Mogo. Some it will be done immediately. but the end point of it all is inheriting the 6 feet. Now, to me, that is not complete until one is buried.
Okay.
Socially,
Socially.
that is not complete until one is buried. Because it's after the burial, you bury the corpse, you now sit, take some words of consolation, console yourself, and then how it now affects you continuously is still a function of your relationship, your togetherness, the what you shared with that person before the incident occurred. Now, moving ahead, you now begin to gradually, you move on. Gradually, you move on. It takes no long time to forget the debt. In fact, some situations, immediately you die, people are already moving on, thinking of what next to do with their lives, or even struggle for your properties and move on. So most persons may not be concerned about the debt itself, the mystery, the vacuum it will create. They are only interested on what next to do. If you are the type that possess properties, at this point, you begin to see how people will even forget about the debt and begin to struggle on how to inherit one or two. So it makes those ones that are too close, they break down. But as time goes on, you will only be remembered one of those encounters, one of those situations that you used to venture into, that used to a kind of intercede, happens to occur. Before you know it, you will be quickly remembered.
Yes.
Every human being in this world is remembered for either the good or for the bad. And in any scenario, you must be needed. And when that situation occurs, before you know what is happening, someone will involuntarily call on your name. So death is something that no one can explain. We can only share the experience we gain from people surrounding the dead, not the death itself, because no one can actually say exactly what happened.
Yes.
Some persons have the culture that no one passes that night without being buried. Like their culture is within a particular stipulated time, the person is lowered. Some can keep for as long as they can. Now, all those things varies from place to place, culture to culture, for those that are living, but for the dead itself, no one. So the mysterious act of death is what no one can explain, but we console ourselves by the lives or by the situationship surrounding us. So some people take death as nothing. Some suffer so much when it happens. Some use it as an avenue to recover what they have lost. Some use it as, but the death itself, none of the aforementioned can even explain what really.
Okay.
So those are the resistance. From time to time, people move on and tend to forget, except situations that will bring the memories of the things you did, the dead did with them. You now remember the dead. Or things that you could do if you were there, they will now remember and begin to talk about you. But the death itself, they are not ready to even dwell on what happened. Bringing me back to our experiences back then in the junior classes, where we were just taught that is one of the characteristics of living things, and there the short note will always be every living thing must die. So death to me is mysterious, and I still say it. I'm not worried to discuss death.
No, but,
Not
but,
worried to
but,
discuss
but
death.
you've said something meaningful and quite interesting to the viewers out there.
Okay.
You've actually, from the sociocultural background of what death is all about, you've really extracted what death for you and what I think it is and what people actually make out of death these days. I think people outside there may have some questions to throw to you, but before that, I wish to thank you for such wonderful illustration. You have actually done well. That's very good. It's not really easy to speak on something you know it's mysterious, something you know it's a mystery. It's just like discussing God. So you cannot discuss God unless you meet to the point of conclusion and end that God exists. So God exists, then you start asking, how does he exist? So that's just what we are trying to do. We already know that this exists. Then we are trying to prove to know, to prove into this thing that is already existing, to know how it came about. So thank you very much for that wonderful illustration. I told people outside there that we have scholars. More are still coming on. But before that, Father, I have a question for you. Father, before I come to Comrade Jonathan, I have a question for you, and it's your field. Of course, I know you very well. You said there was a time you visited one man on a sick bed. He was about dying, but he was requesting to see you before he died. And then it was immediately the man set his eye on you that he died. So Abdin, can you please illustrate more on this? Can you please illustrate? The man needed to see you before he died. And was he in preparation for his death, or I don't really understand it. I wish you throw more light to this. Why would the man be looking for you before he would die? Do he actually know that he was going to die after seeing you? Like, do someone, like, if I want to die now, am I going to be aware? Will it be obvious to me that I will die this day or next day or in the next hour? So that's the question. The man wanted to see you before he would die, and then he has been on sick bed, waiting to see you. And then you made also a perfect illustration from the scripture that Mary asked Jesus, had it been you were here before now, our brother wouldn't have died. So does it mean, and same thing actually happened to you? This man wanted to see you before he died. So can you please throw more light on this with regard to what happened in the scripture?
Well, thank you, Augustine. The fact remains that when we describe anything as a mystery, it is as such with everything surrounding it. History is filled with people who have actually predicted their own death without mistakes. But at the same time, we have evidence of millions who tried to predict theirs and failed. For instance, I'm a Christian and a priest. In the Catholic Church, we have 7 sacraments. And one of them is one meant to prepare the dying for the last departure. It was the request for this sacrament that I went, and to administer it, he actually expressed himself that he had ever wanted to see me, that the time is very close. Let me make this clarification. He may have said this not because he is a Christian, but the experience of death is as mysterious as it is and as personal as it will ever be. My own grandfather predicted his death, but he wasn't a Christian. So Agbom can also, in his elaboration, also note and can also confirm that this do happen almost every now and then. So when it comes to a question of what actually made this man to be looking for me? The real answer must be personal to him, which he cannot give us, but I can guess for two reasons. One, because when you meet a dying person, according to my religion, he can also confess if he wants. You can hear his confession, which I have the faculty to hear as a priest.
Yes.
According to Roman Catholic Church, other religions, other denominations, they have different ways they do their own.
Yeah.
That's one, which I also did when I got there. Number two was to receive the anointing and the last sacrament that prepares you for the dying.
Okay.
Which I did. And when it's done, we thought that he slept off. And we never knew. He just waved at us. So when we discuss something about death as a mystery, every phenomenon associated with it is also as mysterious as death itself, including the prediction, including the how one is going to die. Like, for instance, there are cases where one should say, I'm going to die today, and he will buy a sniper. And after taking the sniper, he will write the suicide note and keep. Honestly, and it will take about 4 days, extra 4 days of pain and agony, and he will not still die. I've seen someone who continued to vomit blood and something that looks like intestine after taking a poisonous liquid. And it took about 2 weeks for him to die. That actually shows that you can't even say exactly what happens at your death, just as Abom said. It is something left for the living. So, no, even if you try to predict, some have successfully done that, some have failed. But whatever happens at death is as unique as every person. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Father. Thank you very much. Please, I still have another question to ask you. No, you said something with regard to Mary asking Jesus, had it been you were here? Had it been you were here?
When we go there, we are dabbling into the question of faith, belief.
Simple.
We are dabbling into belief. Belief exclusively, like Mary and Martha, their family, including Lazarus, they were very close friends of Jesus. They believed in the power of the miracles that Jesus have made in the past. They believed in his healing. They believed in his word. They trusted him to be God. And of course, when you talk of question of faith, there are 3 principal things that must exist. Number 1, you must trust the one in whom you express faith. Number 2, that person must have been believed or must be believed to be a supreme being that can do anything for himself without depending on anyone. Number 3, you believe that also that he can do whatever you request. If he grants it, will come to pass. This is exactly what Mary and Martha tried to express to Jesus. That if you were here, our brother wouldn't have been allowed to die. Because we have seen you stop death in other cases.
Yes.
And Jesus quickly addressed that. He said, it is not a matter of time. It is not a matter of place, but it is a matter of faith. He came back to it and said, do you believe in me that I am capable of doing this? And when they built that faith, he made it happen and brought Lazarus. According to the biblical narrative of John chapter 11, he brought Lazarus back even after 3 days in the grave. So it was an entirely question of faith.
All right. Father, thank you very much for that. But I still have more questions to ask you, Father. But before that, please, to my friends out there, I welcome you to this live broadcast. And I thank you for coming live to join us. Please, if you have any comments you wish to make, please write it. The guest speakers are out there. They will see it and they will respond to you immediately. And then if you have any question you wish to ask, if you want to comment, want to say something, if you have something that has been bothering you with regard to that, and then you wish to know more, or you wish to explain to the whole world to know your own ideas, your own opinion on that, please kindly send it across. So many persons are watching, they want to know. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Auguste, looking at the comment section, could be totally right about that.
Yes,
Totally
I saw.
right about that. From if a philosopher, a theologian, scientist, etc., see that from different perspectives, or does it mean one has to remain at the mercy of whatever he or she believes?
Good.
Okay, yeah.
One, we must be careful to look and theology or philosophy being at loggerheads. No. Basically, they are from the same basic source of the first and the primary fundamental of College of Inquiry that later divided into this. Two, when we deal with the reality of mystery, we must be careful the way we hold on to what is true or what is false, what is correct or what is wrong. And therefore, the complementarity of science and the religion is like a bus. It can take you to a place where there is no road. And when you got to a place where there is no road, only reason can take you, or your legs. There are moments in life where science cannot explain out certain things. And there are moments where reason alone cannot help. You can think about people who go into depression. When they tell you their experiences, you will know. To substantiate this, when you talk of near-death experiences, listen to them. If they are 100, you must get different to 100 narratives, exclusive. And therefore, it's just like marking a question paper of a mathematical question written by students, and 30 of them got 30 different answers. How can you get the correct one? You can only get the correct one if there is already a verified, established, universally accepted answer. You can mark it against that odd. But in death, there is nothing like that. So for me, Elvis, the question remains, what has endured for time? Two, what has your society accepted and established with time? Three, what has been taught and managed and utilized with time by your group, be it religion or institution or school or whatever you can call it? Only this can take you through when it comes to death. Otherwise, death is as unique as every person, no matter what you believe. We have philosophical atheists who never believed in death, but they died. And some of them who never believed in God cried for help from God at the point of dying. One of them is Jean-Paul Sartre. When he had an accident, he shouted "Moon Day," which means, oh my God. But this is a man who spent his life writing that God never existed or God doesn't exist.
Yes.
So when it comes to the question of death, it's as personal as the way you will die. Some may die in an accident, some after a brief illness, some will not even experience any illness and they will sleep and die in their sleep. But what we think about is what happens after death. The way you are buried depends on their culture and their family and their religion. Where you go depends on what you believe when you're alive. For us who are Christians, when I die, having lived my life very well here, or if I have lived my life very well, I'm going to heaven. What do you?
Okay.
So
That's
something
very
like that.
good. That's very good.
So that's it. So if you don't live very well here as a Christian, maybe you go to hell or something like that, or so on and so forth. But what happens is that the way you live here has an implication for where you go after. If you believe that there is life after, depending on your culture, on your religion, and on your personal conviction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Father. Thank you very much for that. And I still have one more question for you, Father, before I come to the second speaker. Father,
Okay.
you made mention of something in passing while giving out your speech before we come to someone that is actually asking you the question. So now, does it mean it's actually good when you feel you are tired of this life, when you feel the life is so miserable to you that you can actually give up your life and then off you go? Is that what you're trying to say while you were illustrating your point? Maybe when you feel you are tired, you no longer, the life is not worth living anymore. It's meaningless to you, that you can just end it. Is that what you are trying to establish? Second, it does appear that sometimes when some persons are about to die, they feel more happier and comfortable. What do you think? I know it's a mystery. I mean, when people appears like getting to the end of their life, maybe they're on their sick bed, they're about dying. Sometimes they feel more happier at that stage. They're about dying. They feel happier. What do you think is going on within that stage?
Well, let me start from your last question. It depends on the conviction the person got, whether from the beginning or from at a point within the suffering. One, if the person was not having a nostalgia or fears about death, and with time, in the midst of his suffering, he conquered that fear and became more emboldened to face the reality that must come. For instance, somebody who had been given a date, he has a cancer or liver failure or kidney failure, and he was told to prepare that he was going to die, or he's going to die in 3 days or 1 week. Definitely, at the beginning, he's not going to find it easy. But with time, you will see this kind of a total turnaround of a feeling. He has simply conquered fears. Number two, if he's a Christian or even a traditionalist, if he's able to put things right with those around him that he felt he was having issues with, he will feel a relief. Number three, he may have received a consolation from those around him, be it from his priest, be it from his family members, be it from people he trusted, friends. Depending. But most importantly, the conviction the person has about death is what brings either sorrow or joy at the point of departure. To the first question, if what you believe or what happens at death is personal, by that I'm not proposing suicide. I mentioned it earlier on that you have no right to take what you didn't keep. Neither can you destroy what you never created. You must respect the intention of the giver. What do I mean by this? When we talk about suicide, especially the present time when the environment or the culture of living is going down and people are going into depression, many people are jumping into lagoons, many taking their lives in different styles. Let me tell you this. That cannot even solve a problem. Number one, it is an act of cowardice. Whatever is threatening your life, it is better to face it and then teach the later generation. I allowed someone to speak in my church last time because he wrote a book to show the value of life. And I asked him why. He said, Father, this is not just actually a theory. It's my experience. I got into depression 3 years ago. And at a point, I wanted to kill myself, but I was helped by someone. After this, I decided to share my story with people who may be passing through the same. Austin, no culture, including America or some states in America or Europe, where it is constitutionally allowed to do what you like, maybe with your life. But even at that, in the midst of such cultures, you discover that people still frown each time one takes his life. No culture, especially in Africa, can allow you or clap for you when you take your life. No religion can even allow you, not even in Islam. There must be an overriding reason for you to engage in a suicide mission. They are not doing it to take their own life. They do it to accomplish the mission of a supreme being, depending on what they are taught about their own religion. But for me, and for the religion of Christianity, to which I belong, suicide is not an option. Last time I came to my Facebook handle and wrote, if you have an issue and you're looking for someone to talk to, DM me or chat me up or look for someone to talk to. Don't take your life. There is no reason for it, no matter how bad it is.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Father, very much for that powerful illustration. Like I've said before, Father, the last speaker now is a priest of the Holy Roman Catholic Church in Nigeria, in Abakaliki. And he's an erudite scholar, he's a philosopher and a theologian for excellence. So he's doing well. And the second speaker is Comrade Jonathan Abomo. He's almost finishing his master's degree and he's doing well too. He's an erudite scholar. So back to you, Comrade Jonathan. When you were explaining, giving out your illustration on death, you made mention of something, and with that, I wish to ask you, what about those people that are being convicted after being found wanted after one or two offenses, and their merit is capital punishment? I mean, people that were just killed, maybe after an offense they committed in the society. What do you have to say about that? Because that's not a natural form of death. They were actually killed. What will you have to say about this? This we call euthanasia. Euthanasia, maybe people that are sick and they are suffering, and they don't know how to do it, and maybe the aged, and the society thinks maybe the best way to assist these people is to end their life. Euthanasia. So what do you have to say about these two, capital punishment and euthanasia?
All right. When you talk about capital punishment, they are being issued by government. And every society has rules, norms, things that guide them. And some society run a very rigid form of constitution or guide that no matter who is involved, it cannot be thwarted. There are also some society that run a flexible one, such that circumstances can manipulate it. You understand?
Yes,
and now,
yes, yes.
when it comes to situations of capital punishment, we are being governed by a set of persons who, and when we talk about these rules with which they are violated, remember that you were part of the rules. That's why even if you glance through a copy of Nigerian Constitution, at the preamble, you will always see "we Nigerians," even when you were not born when such rule was created.
Yes.
But you, by virtue of reading that, you have accepted that you are part and parcel of that constitution, and you endorsed it. So, but then, when you look at the the situations. I can't remember the last time even the capital punishment being pronounced in Nigeria, for instance, is being executed. You hear someone, this one is sentenced to death by this, by this, by this. Those yesteryears, we can easily see people being killed by shooting or by other means because of the offenses that they committed. But now, there are other means of punishing such persons. That is to tell you that the situation, the society is evolving because no particular society encourages killing of one another. But rules, laws are made to guide us. You can imagine when we run into anarchy, a situation whereby there is nothing to regulate us. You can wake up today, do whatever you want, wake up tomorrow, kill whoever you want to kill. And by so doing, you find out that it's going to spoil the society the more. Now, there are some situations, in a very strict situation, you find out that the only option is to terminate such person from existence.
Okay.
You and I know what happens to, just for instance, when you are being faced by a renowned terrorist, like these ones that are suicide bombers.
Okay, yes. Yes.
For instance, now the mission of such person is not just to kill others, but to also kill himself. Situations like that, if such person is captured and killed, will you blame the society? You can't blame the society. Reason being that if you spare such a person, you stand a chance of wasting more lives. And every government, every society, every culture protects life, no matter how